Today on Capechi's Corner, we're going to work with multiplication properties of exponents. This is our second day, and we're just going to do some extra practice. These are the properties we worked with in the last lesson. Product of powers property. When you're multiplying, you add the exponents. So for example, if I have x to the third times x to the ninth, I end up with x to the 12th. The second property is the power of a power property. When I have a base raised to a power and then raised to another power, I'm going to multiply those powers. So for instance, if I have y to the second, then raised to the 10th, I get y to the 20th. And our last property is power of a product property. If I have something in the parentheses raised to a power, the coefficient in each of the variables is raised to that power. So for instance, if I have 3x squared raised to the third power, the 3 is going to be raised to the third power, and so is the x squared. So in the end, I get 27x to the 6th. When dealing with multiplication properties of exponents, they are really like times tables when you're younger, when you learn how to multiply things, and you just need to practice them over and over again so they become second nature. So that's what we're going to do today. Our first problem says a to the 7th times a to the 12th. Now remember, since I'm multiplying, I'm going to add my exponents, so I end up with a to the 19th. In number 2, the same thing holds true. My bases are the same, so I can add my exponents. So if I add 12 plus 19 plus 11, that's going to give me g to the 42nd power. And looking at number 3, I have exponents. I have 2 and a 4, so I need to multiply them first. That's going to give me 8. And then again, I'm going to add my exponents. So I have x to the second times x to the third, so it's going to give me x to the 5th. And then I have y to the 2nd. And in number 4, I have 11c to the 8th times negative 10c to the 4th, d to the 4th. So again, I'm going to multiply my coefficients first. So 11 times negative 10 is going to give me negative 110. And then I have c to the 12th because I'm adding those exponents, and then d to the 4th. In number 5, we have the same idea. It's just the problem's a little bit longer because we're multiplying 3 terms. So let's first look at the coefficients. I have negative 2 times negative 4 times negative 3. So negative 2 times negative 4 gives me positive 8. Multiply that by negative 3 and I get negative 24. Now let's concentrate just on my x's. So I have x to the second and I have x to the first over here, my last term there. So it's going to give me x to the third. My y, I have y to the second and y to the first. So it's going to give me y to the third. And z's, I have one z here and then I have another z and I have a third z. So it's actually going to be z to the third. So that's my final answer right there. Negative 24, x to the third, y to the third, and z to the third. Now we're going to work with our power to a power property. So again, a to the 7th raised to the 5th. I'm going to multiply, so it gives me a to the 35th. In number 7, I have y to the 13th raised to the 5th power, which leaves me y to the 65th. In number 8, I'm going to take 4 to the 2nd power, which gives me 16. And then y to the 6th, since I'm multiplying the powers. And then the last one, number 9, this negative in front is really like negative 1. So I'm going to take negative 1 to the 4th power, c to the 20th, h to the 24th. Now negative 1 to the 4th power is really taking negative 1 and multiplying that 4 times. So I'm just going to write that out just this once to give you a visual. So that's going to be negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1. And if I keep going, in the end, negative 1 to the 4th power is positive 1. So my final answer is just going to be c to the 20th, h to the 24th. Since my coefficient is positive 1, I don't need to write anything there. In number 10, I'm going to combine some properties. So first I need to get rid of my parentheses because of order of operation. So I have k to the 9th raised to the 5th gives me k to the 45th. And I'm going to multiply that by k to the 6th, power to a power. So now I'm multiplying. So the base is the same, and now I'm going to add. So then my final answer here is k to the 51st. Same thing with number 11. I'm going to take 4 to the 2nd power, write all this out first, h to the 6th, times, now again, negative 2 has to go in parentheses, raised to the 3rd, g to the 9th, h to the 3rd. 4 squared is 16, negative 2 to the 3rd is negative 8. So when I multiply those, I get negative 128. and I have g to the ninth, and now I'm going to add my exponents, h to the ninth. So that's my final answer right there. In our next set of problems, the directions say to evaluate when x is equal to 5, y is equal to -1, and z is equal to 4. Now, whenever we see the word evaluate in math, we know that we're trying to find the value of the given information. Let's look at number 1. So we have 3 times, now x equals 5, so I'm going to substitute that. So 3 times 5 to the third. Now I know that 5 to the third is 125, so I'll multiply that. 3 times 125 gives me 375. So that's the value of 3x to the third. In number 2, I'm going to do the same thing. Y is equal to -1. I'm going to square that. So I have 2 times -1 squared is +1. So my value there is 2. In number 3, I have y is -1 times my z is 4, and I'm going to square that. So again, in using our order of operations, we have to get rid of our parentheses first. So -1 times 4 gives us -4. And now I'm going to square that. -4 squared has a value of 16. Now in the last one in parentheses, we have xy raised to the third power. So x has a value of 5. Y has a value of -1. I'm going to raise that to the third power. So again, we're going to work inside out. So 5 times -1 gives me -5. Raised to the third power has a value of -125. Let's look at our last set of problems for today. It says, what is the area of a square with the length of a side equaling 2x to the fourth? Now, anytime in a word problem I see a shape, a square, a triangle, a rectangle, I like to draw it. It just gives me a good visual. So I know I have a square, so I'm going to draw my square. And it says the length of each side is going to be equal to 2x to the fourth. So this is going to be 2x to the fourth, and that's going to be 2x to the fourth. All 4 sides are 2x to the fourth, but for area, I just need 2 of the sides. I know the area is equal to the length times the width. So if I wanted to, I could square it, right? It's a side squared and a square, but I think it's just as easy to multiply length times width. So I have 2x to the fourth times 2x to the fourth. Take care of my coefficients first, so I have 4. X to the 8th, right? I'm going to add my exponents, and that's going to be units squared. So that's my area of my given square. Now number 2 says, what's the area of the rectangle with the width of 2y squared and the length of 15y to the fifth? So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw a rectangle. It just gives me a good visual. So my width is 2y squared, and my length is 15y to the fifth. So area again is going to be length times width. So I have 15y to the fifth times 2y squared. So 15 times 2 gives me 30. I'm going to add my exponents, so I have y to the 7th, and again, because it's area, it's always going to be squared, so I have units squared. So there's my final answer for that one.